Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank you all who are listening and who are here this evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and the first business that we have is approval of our agenda. I need a motion for that.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Ms. Hughes has made that motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Guthrie has seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. That is unanimous. Now we'll turn the welcome and invocation over to Ms. Barbara Crosby.
Good evening, and I do welcome everyone tonight. If everyone would bow your heads. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, as we come before you tonight, we ask your blessings, Lord. We ask your blessings on so many events and so many things, and good and bad, that are going on in our district. Lord, we ask that you be with our administrators as they have to make the decisions to open school and how to open school. Lord, we just pray for our children and our teachers, that they too will be ready to come back and be able to adjust to what we have to do. Lord, I'd like to continue to always pray for our military, to pray for our government, just to pray for things, Lord, that you tell us that we're supposed to bless, that we're supposed to pray for. Lord, I thank you for each of these board members, for each of our teachers, our staff, administrators, even our custodial service, our lunchrooms. Lord, we can't do it without everybody as a team, and that's why we are Team Dorchester. Lord, we thank you for this, all that you provide, and we ask that you forgive us when we fail you. For it's in Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, at this time, I will need the approval for the regular meeting of June 8th, 2020, regular and executive session.
Make that motion.
Mr. Guthrie made the motion to approve,
I'll second.
and Mr. Farnsworth, second. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. And it is unanimous. Thank you. And now, at this time, we'll turn it over to Mr. Pye for our superintendent's report.
Good. First of all, I wanted to let you know we successfully completed our graduations. I think we talked about that after the first one last time, and our scholarship total is already surpassing last year's. We think the virus actually probably affected that even being higher. We had heard the results of Ashley Ridge, and I was supposed to have those, and I don't think I have the actual figures.
It is on the board.
Oh, it's on the board, thank you very much. It makes it even better.
Can you read it?
I can't read it.
Isn't it behind you?
You want to enlarge it?
There you go. Graduates, we graduated 1,773 seniors, almost 1,800, and we did over 3 days. Those ceremonies lasted from a low of an hour and 5 minutes at Somerville to probably the longest was, what, an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes, maybe an hour and 40 minutes at Ashley Ridge, and Fort was somewhere in between. So that was wonderful, considering that we had to do it in such an awkward way, and the public just participated so well. And looking back over it virtually, it really was well done. We had a little cooling down at Ashley Ridge with the sprinklers going off, but hey, I think that added to some fun of, you know, no matter how well you plan, there's something. We worried so about water from the rain, never thought about it on the football field coming from the sprinkler system, but lesson learned. Well, no, hopefully we won't have to do that again, but if we do, we'll be prepared. Want you to know that distinguished honor graduates were at, what was that? Is that 261? I can't believe I can't see. I'm having cataract surgery, by the way, board and next week after. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Honor graduates 235. South Carolina Academic Achievement 56 students had that. Diploma of Distinction 274. And of course, special ed graduates were 62. In the early college associate degree program, we had 52 to receive their associate degree. So those are very impressive numbers. I know we ended on a bad note, but look at the scholarship total, right at $41 million. And so we feel very strong that our seniors are doing well. They're going to wonderful places. The list of colleges and places they've been accepted to is all the finest the country has to offer. So we're very proud of our graduates, and we wish them well, and we're glad we can send them off, not only with the face-to-face, but the virtual, which was quite a hit. I've had lots of people approach me telling me they were upset to only receive the 2 tickets, but we're so appreciative that their elderly parents, grandparents did not have to travel long distances, that whole families were watching it virtually, how they could see it up close, pause it, go back and look at it, that was better than any graduation ceremony they could have attended in person. And so I had quite an impressive showing, so we appreciate the folks that made that happen for us. Also, update on the task force program with getting us back into school. That's still going along. We've added that extra subcommittee. We have 6 of them. We're meeting constantly. Everybody's had at least 2 meetings. Some have already had their 3rd one, and as many as a 4th meeting is scheduled for this week. So things are really moving. I think the teachers are joining them this week, as well as the students. We finally have those picking up, and so far it's just been conversation. We're not close, unfortunately, of picking up anything. What we're trying to do is find out all the things we have no control over. If that has something to do with one of the models we're looking at, and we can't overcome it, it's significant, then we need to take that model off the plate. It's just, we're narrowing it down, so I'm really worried about not having several models for us to really dig into. The parent survey, I'm on that committee, and those folks did a great job of putting that together. The committee that was in charge of that, Ms. Graham and Teresa Kelly, they mainly designed it with a lot of input from the committee. It could be a long one if you had lots of kids at different grade levels and wanted to answer all the questions. It took you to wherever you wanted to be, and you had to answer them in order to hit the submit button. But we've received back 17,000 of those surveys, and we need about 26,000. So we have about 9 to go. We are sending out reminders, call-outs. We got to pick that number up, and I feel like if we get up at about 22,000 or more, that's going to be significant to say we have 85%. It's probably a great return, considering the students are here for us to give rewards to and all for bringing in, make sure your parent does the survey. Great comments. It's still leading probably at least 2 to 1 for face-to-face, which we knew that would be. I'm not sure at this point we made it clear about what we meant by blended half and half, because that can be confusing, because people might equate that with what we did with the packets in the spring, but whatever we do, it will not be looking like that. That's not the model we would follow. And of course, all virtual. We picked up several thousand, was it 5,000? Maybe it was a good number between the 3 grade levels that virtual. The high schools had the largest number. The older the child, the more that seemed to fit the needs of the family that was doing the survey. So that's still out there, and we're waiting to see the numbers. I spent this morning an hour on the telephone with 6 or 7 superintendents in our region. Our Low Country Consortium is now listed in Columbia. We are a nonprofit. We're a full-fledged organization with our own charter, bylaws. I am the first chairman of it, and we have met several times already. Today was to share what each district's doing. I was so relieved to know we're not behind anybody. If anything, we might be slightly ahead, and I thought we were greatly behind. But based on the limited knowledge that we have, and we've all been waiting to get something to come out of the sky to say this is what's going to be, I think as of today, when we expected that, it's not going to come that way. I think it's going to give, some general information, such as in talking to some of the districts today. Naturally, there was the talk of taking those 5 days and bringing kids in early and give them some assessments to find out what learning loss they might have experienced. Not necessarily begin teaching, but maybe begin teaching procedures and protocols that's normally done the first week of school. So teachers would have more actual teaching time when the kids actually start, they'll be given their device and they can be right into it rather than having to start all over again. The devices, we've kept that calendar going. It's still, we hope by the last of August to have all schools will have their devices, and so that's good. At one time it was back at November, December. We keep moving it up, and every week Dr. Huggins can get them to move it up, or every day. I'm just appreciative of any day that we could get it moved up. We've also discussed that as some of the districts are talking about starting early, we're now hearing rumblings across the state about districts starting later because of the rapid decline in the wellness of people and high numbers breaking records every day. We're very concerned about the exposure to our teachers and thus our children and vice versa, that one will lead to another, and we could then be forced to close down, losing even more time by trying to start too early. So we're watching to see what guidance we'll get from DHEC and the health folks, as well as from the governor's office, and then we'll be with our task force working with our public and working with you, the school board members, to determine if there needs to be a calendar change. I'm not professing that I see it going real late, but perhaps later in August instead of early August, because if we had those 5-day zone, we'd be asking teachers to come out, August 10th? Is that the date we said? And that's early, where we'd rather, if we could move it back, everything back to maybe 2 weeks, that might work better for people. And it also give us more time to, once we get the final criteria, to get schedules and all changed. We've already put all the principals have indicated their traditional schedules are already done. For face-to-face, that's done. They've been told to schedule students based on the size of that grade level in their classes, or they can be divided for social distancing. We have 2 architectural firms that we're working with or want to work with us to help determine what, based on the size of our classes, what would be the highest number of students that should be there because of the grade levels in that school. So we'll have different numbers for elementary, middle, and high, but we want those numbers so principals can make sure if they divided their class for some reason, we could get half and half in the rooms. Now, that would determine how much is virtual or not. Our policy, our committee is heavy on this, and I noticed Molly Spearman made quite a plea today that we do not mix our teaching, traditional teaching, with the online teaching at the same time. Like a teacher's teaching 15 here, and she got 15 at home, and she's talking to them through Teams and everything. She's doing 2 things. That's impossible, y'all. It's hard to do either one of those. I'd be terrible doing Teams all day. They'd have to fire me, probably wouldn't last long, but we've got to do a lot of training. And we've got to be very kind to our teachers, too, remembering they have families. They're worried about being in school with their own health and the health of the elderly. Parents might be living with them and their own personal children. So we're all in this together. So whatever we decide, we want it to be in the best interest of everybody. We can't please everybody, but we hope we will have a system that will allow some flexibility. So if we do have to do some virtual, it'll be by people who wish to do that and would like to maybe work out of their home if possible because of their fear of coming back, which would help us to have more room to spread out the ones who do come. That's just on the table as an option. Nothing, we're not even close to making a decision. We're all over the place. As soon as we think we have an idea, we kind of want to explore. Something from the nurse will come up, something will come up from bus transportation. Somebody in the room puts a chill on it to say, but what about this? And we're realizing there's no silver bullet here. We're going to have to do a lot of praying, a lot of talking, a lot of hand-holding to bring you something that we think is viable, that you can go on record to say, this is the best we can do with what we have. We've left nothing uncovered. And so that's sort of where we are, and we want to do that in a way that we're not rushed, but at the same time, we get our kids back in school and back to learning, because that's what we're here for. We want them to be safe, and we want them to feel comfortable to come. As I told you last time, we're very concerned about the learning loss. I'm concerned about the trauma a lot of our families are experiencing and going through, trying times in so many different ways. And every day we get a different concern comes before us that's legitimate, but it's just one more on the long list of things that we realize that are touching the lives of our families in the community, and that, even though we didn't cause it, we are part of the solution because we have the next generation of leaders in our possession. And the best gift we can give them is a quality education and teach them to be wonderful citizens and to work together and help each other, and we'll all have a better life. So that's sort of where we are with the task force. Moving on with that one, in the meeting that I had this morning, Beaufort and Georgetown were with us today in Colleton County, as well as District 4, Charleston, and Berkeley. We had so much in common, but yet again, we still have some differences about what's happening here. We had the largest number of surveys back, so we had a little bit more information that we couldn't come out and say we're starting on August 11th. We're not anywhere close to saying that. And so some of them were wanting to report that's where they were almost sure they were going, but we promised each other to try to work together. But if it comes down to, if you want to start on the 11th and you want to start on the 25th, there could be a difference there that we just have to differ. And as much as I'd like to be just like them, sometimes it might not be the right thing for our community. But we'll be polling people for that. I feel real good about what we're doing so far, and it's just a lot going on, folks. We're very busy to be in what you call the lull, planning time of school, and we've been in a lull for so long, and that's what's so bad. You get antsy because it's so little you can really do to feel productive and to come to conclusion. But we're meeting with our mask on, and trying to decipher what we can best do. Everyone's coming to the table putting out their input. We receive so many wonderful ideas and suggestions and least concerns, which tells us as we communicate, we're going to need to address some of these things of why they're not there or why they might be there, because we're seeing people asking things that we think of, but we just assume everybody knows the answer to that, but based on some of those surveys, they don't. They're depending on us to not only say we know it, we've explored it, can you explain to us why it's in there, it's not in there. So we know we got to do a lot of that communication, and we're taking to heart all input that we're receiving. Everybody's at the table trying to work together. Any questions on that?
I do have just a question. With everything going on, some things seem so simple when it's normal, like changes in schedules.
Mm-hmm.
Have y'all determined how you're going to handle that with guidance counselors if parents want a change of schedule?
All right, the change of schedule that I think so far we haven't got past to, if the child is learning virtually, a combination, or face-to-face. And some groups of students in our system need to be face-to-face. Some can handle virtually beautifully and do already, but looks like the way we have to social distance, unless something changes, there's got to be some type of combination schedule. So within that schedule, at the high school level, particularly with courses, it'll be the same it's always been. You've got that window of time to change your schedule. Now, it's easier if you start out virtual and go face-to-face, is what we've explored and found from other districts. It's easier to ease people in than to start off with people in and ask them to leave. It doesn't go over near as well. Child care is going to be a major issue from the surveys, major. It's always been an issue, but we won't have it to work with necessarily as much as we've had up to this point. Pat is arranging the meeting with all the, we're trying to bring in all the different daycare programs in town. I've asked for a personal meeting with the Y, who approached me last spring or early last year, mid-year, with their new director about possibly how could they help with child care. Well, if ever there was a time, I believe it's now. And so I've even thought about looking at our churches and meeting with Ministerial Association. Can any of them pick up some of this and help us? But it's not enough in our town not with this many kids that's going to need help. If we have any kind of schedule where they're off a day and back on a day, if any of that materializes, it's going to be major. We're trying to avoid that, knowing that parents are going to be, many of our parents can't afford child care, and they don't have a support system with no family members here. And we have to be aware that that is the problem, because if the children aren't here, that means they're home, not cared for or watched over, which is a dangerous situation, which then that's where the counselor's role is really going to change, not just with the scheduling, but working with these children through all these and families, these situations. We were hoping to receive 3 more mental health counselors. We asked for 6. They can't find them. So they think sure they can get 2, but we're up to 3 or 4 if they could stretch it. We would like to keep adding them so we make sure we have plenty of service. We'll never have plenty, but we'll have more adequate services. We found out today that the kids without the internet, which Molly and those said there are major things happening at the state level that should improve that. That is coming, but we know there'll still be a large number of kids without those hot spots. So I met with Tina today with the CARES money. We're just going to take some money out, $1 million or so. We're off the top. We have got to, if we're going to do a lot of stuff with computers, we have to have everything. We can't have half of it, because every child needs to be armed with the same opportunity to learn. So that's that. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to piggyback off what you said about the daycares, because at my church, and I've had a couple people ask me, they said it would put such a hardship on them for daycares if you do a split, like one day on, one day off. The other thing is, have you heard what the colleges are doing? They're going to go start that maybe a week early, 5 days early, and then they're going to stop at Thanksgiving and not go back until after Christmas in January, because that would be the peak of flu season.
Right. And we're concerned about that too, but based on those surveys, we had a large number of people who are anxious to send their children back now. So how many children and how many teachers are willing to come back full time to do that? We could be crippled. So that's our issue.
Well, from what I've read, like I said, what I've read is the numbers show that they've increased as far as the virus, but a lot of that is because people are going and being tested now, and so it's showing that more people have it.
Yeah, well, people are still dying though.
Yeah, I think we have in like maybe 6, but that's not. And they also saying that, the younger children are the ones that are not susceptible, and if they are, they shake it off, And
They could be carriers.
right.
And it's the teachers that can't shake it off. And
Right.
without teachers and bus drivers, they can't get here.
Right. So, but and I don't think we have a right or wrong answer.
There is not
And like
one.
you said, I don't think that,
But I'd like, the more options we have for daycare, the more opportunity that will exist. Even if we were bringing even half, that might be enough to suffice. But right now, we didn't have enough before. Running a full schedule is that is everybody's first choice. Everybody is bring it back to normal. Would work, going several weeks work, you're gambling, but if you come back early and you have a bunch of sick people go out, then who's going to feel comfortable taking off again in November to December? You're missing so much time that the kids really will be affected. So it's a pretty bad situation to be in.
because a lot of people are trying to make plans, of course, so when do you think that Molly's going to make that decision?
Well, she promised us mid-June. Well, it's a little past mid-June. We were told yesterday, without a doubt, that would be announced today. We all listened to her program at 2:30. It was no mention of that, as if that was never said. So I kept saying next week. Her next conference is next week, didn't she announce that? It's obviously because so many new cases they're feeling, and I have a feeling the politicians and the people, the educators who are empowered to make the decisions are in conflict with the medical profession. I think it's bigger than what the media says it is, and I think that's sort of like, okay, bring the children back, but are you willing to keep them spaced apart? How can you keep kindergartners 6 feet apart all day long? And what about children wearing masks all day? You see this child, 72, and I can't wear my mask. But that's what would happen. And when you have a breakdown in that, all you're going to do is just feed the program more. So it's a hard, because nobody has experience. As we talked today, not one superintendent had anything extra to say than what I just told you all tonight. It's just not there. Nobody knows what to do. And I was by far the oldest one, and I'm asking them for advice.
Well, if we can just take their temperatures when they come in the door,
Well, that was brought up
and then
too.
check it again during the middle of the
Some of them are
day.
gonna do it.
And you just go,
But
you
even
can't keep them
there,
out, you can't keep them out of school forever.
No.
We can't keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and we can't put it off forever. And I don't think the virus is going to go away for a long time, in my opinion.
That's why you can't ignore the virtual option. We can't ignore that.
And those little ones just don't do
It's not the
that.
best thing, but I just can't see a kindergartner on the computer learning.
That's what I'm saying, those little ones cannot do it. And probably the parents sitting there doing it with them anyway, doing it for them.
How much leeway is Molly Spearman given each district to do what they think is best for their district?
Well, she's going to try to waive the testing again this year, so teachers don't have to be anxious over that, nor parents. We're not going to be held to that standard. She's pretty well willing to waive just about anything that you ask her. They've done an awful lot. She said today there's nothing I wouldn't consider. We need to get the kids back. But she's under great strain because she's has to say we want them back, and naturally face-to-face is it, but she's like doubtful that as long as these numbers are rising, we can't make a statement. How can you say we're coming back face-to-face? Every day we're breaking a record, but we're coming back to school next week. I mean, what is that? What kind of believability is that? So you could see it and feel it in her voice. I know her well, and she's really taking this pretty hard. She's really struggling to try to answer everything, and she's really more frank than I've ever known her to be. She's up there knowing that she's on camera, but she's talking from her heart, trying to do the right thing, and speaking for all the groups that I know she's talking with to try to get the right answer. So we'll let you know as soon as we know, but bottom line, they would rather that each district make their own calendar, their own everything. They want to give us they've got to go on record that they tried to save everybody and tell us what to do. But at the end of the day, you do it and you live by it. That's pretty well what I'm hearing.
Boy, that's a big change.
So that's why we're trying to work as a region. Can we come up with something regionally that would work for us, and we're supporting each other? Rather than I'm first, I'm all day, you're all computer, and we're trying to race to see which one is right, and none of those are completely right. And I think we're shortchanging children.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple of just quick questions. Looking at the technology and talking about the virtual piece of it, I hope I'm right that the devices that we're going to get out to our student population, that will help that piece of it, I'm assuming?
Tremendous.
Did we change it? Because originally I thought it was like second grade through 12th grade.
It was.
All students now?
K-12.
So K-12, so every student will have a device.
For no other reason, if we do that, if we weren't having this virus and we went out for 2 weeks for a hurricane, we would not have to make any of those days up because we had this e-learning going on, and it's worked in so many states, and so they believe by it now. And when we said we did e-learning in the spring, it was scattered. It was not as good as this should be. With teachers all trained, they can talk to their class every day. They can give that instruction that they couldn't give before. They do it by phone or whatever else they could communicate with the kids. And so this is going to be better if we can have time to finish up the training, which many of our teachers have already done. And we have the children taught with the procedures to take care of what they have and get the parents buy-in that this is a wonderful tool, needs to be used properly. We have policies we bring into you about the care and the maintenance, and also the policies on how it should be used and what happens if it's not used like it's supposed to be. Then I guess it'll be through trial and error to see how well we do it in the district we're in. Our people aren't going to settle for just throwing out there and doing it just like they did with the packets. They question every day. Why are we not doing new learning? This is not working. or we had a computer in every house, this would be beautiful, this would work beautifully. We heard all the concerns. We did the best with what we had, and I'd hold our district at the end of the day up with any all virtual district as well as all traditional. We did the best we could, but that's not good enough for our children, so we want to try to top it. And we've got, $17 million worth of technology coming in, so if this, this is the best we have to offer.
Yeah, no, and you're right. I mean, I think it's a piece of the puzzle. And then the other thing I was going to ask, and you certainly may defer to Tina for later in our agenda, but looking at the funding, because I know Molly, Superintendent Spearman today, had talked a lot about the funding piece of it. So we've talked about we're going to take in $3.5 million, $4 million from the CARES Act. It sounds like there's maybe some additional funding that could be available from the legislature in the form of grants or something like that. And so I just don't know. I'm assuming you guys are already looking at that.
We are, yes, sir. We want every dime we can get. If it's just 5 or 10,000, that goes to fund something. Because those things the hot spots are about $250 a piece for one house. So if we've got 2,000 or 3,000 houses, then that runs that bill up quite high. And there's not enough CARES money in the world to do that, but that's what the money was supposed to be. What expense is this district incurring because of the virus? That's the first option of those 12 buckets. But they also keep telling us there could very well be cuts in the middle of the year. We need to save, but Tina and I talked about this morning, and as much as I want to listen to that, all this money's coming out of our general budget on last year's budget, and we know that's marginal to run it this time. So unless something's going to change, and I don't see any new revenue on the horizon, then I think we ought to do what we need to do now to pay back the general fund what is going to all this CARES stuff with the CARES money first, and then see what we might have that could go for a project that would take us a step further as a result of the virus, which would mean like these devices would be a perfect thing to put there, because then we're reaching out in those areas. But she did make that clear today also. They've got some plans to really go in these rural areas that do a lot in South Carolina, but school's starting soon, sometime or another, but it's got to be soon enough. I can't imagine they're moving quick enough to really help anybody. We've not heard of anybody run down the street, put cabling in or wires.
Mr. Pye, I was thinking of another thing, talking about the every other day situation. If you have a child that's, say, home, say a third grader, that he's home that day or out of school that day, and he's in a daycare, is the daycare going to let him sit there all day long and watch that computer and do what the teacher's doing?
That's why we're having that conversation with them. See, nothing's the same. No more is it the same. You can't do what you've always done because I can't do what I've always done. And if I change what I'm doing, you're going to have to change what you're doing, and none of it's going to work. That's the issue we're dealing with, and I don't think a lot of people understand that this is not temporary. This school will never, ever be the same as it was last February. It won't ever be that way again. So too many things are already changing. They've dropped, who would ever guess state testing being dropped 2 years in a row maybe? I mean, that's unheard of. And the next thing it'll be the evaluation process. It's just such an abnormal situation. You can't do normal things in an abnormal situation. I think that's what our problem is.
And also, like the after-school programs, they would have to be all-day programs.
Absolutely.
And so they're going to...
Where are we going to put them? That's why I've got to talk to the Y and talk to the churches and everybody else. You've got gyms, you've got big buildings. Can you come up with some programs that would help us, help our population?
I was just going to ask about your graduation numbers. You highlighted the early degrees, and so I know some of the colleges are talking about their schedules, but Tech is still on board with receiving those students and doing dual credit, and it will just be, they'll figure out if that's going to be virtual or how that's going to be.
So far, that's what they're doing, and it'll be all virtual for them.
And we had, I know all 3 high schools were involved in that early college. We still have students from all 3.
All 3.
And is that number 52, is that lower or higher than we've had before?
It might be a little bit lower than it was last year. 60's about the most I remember.
I was gonna say 30 or something for me,
So it's
25 or
like
something.
between 50 on the low and 60 on the high. It starts with 90. They go 2 years, but it is tough. These are freshmen, the summer of their freshman year. So they're very young and have to have enough prerequisites to be able to do this. And remember, we're not picking students based on how smart they are. They've got to have the goods. We really are targeting the children who cannot afford to go to college. This is a program to assist kids that have the talent, the ability, but they need an opportunity. So that's what this is about.
Thank you.
Anyone else? It certainly has been open to our eyes what a rippling effect all this is, how many people in the community even are going to be involved in this if it's going to work. So thank you for the report. We'll turn our attention now to the finance report with Ms. Tina Minier.
Good evening, Chairwoman Robinson, board members, and Mr. Pye. The financial reports that are in your packet this month are for the month of April 2020, and this was our first month of the full shutdown without students, without revenues in some areas. So some of the areas don't look so great on the revenue side, but we do have a little savings on the expenditure side. Mr. Farnsworth, one of the positive things that we were talking about with the waivers is in regards to we're able to take some of our federal monies and reallocate some of those. So we were going to use this for some of the technology and to help us through this coronavirus time to get us ready for the e-learning in the fall too. So that was a positive thing about the waivers. So on your balance sheet, you can see that we're at $50.7 million for our assets, and our liabilities are at $6.2 million. And right now our fund balance is 44.4, which that's a little high above what we're allowed to keep, but that number will come down as we go through until the end of the year. We can only keep 15%, which we'll get it within the 15%. On the next page, you'll see your revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. One item I wanted to note was our state revenue in lieu of taxes looks a little lower than last year because there was a timing difference. Things got a little slow, I think, at the state, so they didn't send us our state revenue that month until May. So we'll see that in May, so we'll get caught up on that revenue side. On the expenditure side, as Mr. Pye was saying, we're trying to get ready for the e-learning. We have some bond money that's helping us out. We're also using some extra technology money that's in the general fund to get us ready. We're hoping that we can get everything ready for sooner rather than later. We really want the kids to come back, but we want to be safe, so we're using some technology money for that. The next page is our food service fund. This doesn't look super great. This was our first month with zero revenues because there were no students to serve, so we didn't get any revenues from the feds for this month. I do want to point out that our net change in fund balance that's shown as the negative 1.8 million. I just want to let y'all know that each year, as we're closing out our books, we are required to do a calculation because we receive money from the state to help us with our employer contributions for fringe. So part of the money from that we collect in the general fund, we move over to the food service fund to cover those employer contributions. So this year we have in our general fund budget, which I meant to point out on the other sheet, as $1 million. So Mr. Pye and I had talked about, as we're closing out our books this year, to get us on a more level playing field and get us to in a good spot with our new food service management company, so they're not starting off with a negative. We'll probably transfer a little bit more than that just to get us in a better place. And we have the monies to do that because some of our savings in the general fund. So as you can see, the final page of that financial report is the scheduled revenues, expenditures, and the revenues. Again, we did not receive any revenue from proceeds from the sale of meals for this month because there were no students. However, as the State Department has encouraged us to keep our employees on for as long as we could. So we still had some expenditures for salaries and benefits. We also paid for some food costs that had been purchased for the month before when we were feeding the students. So we had some expenditures in the month of April. But we're going to get cleaned up before the end of the year. And next year's going to be better. We're going to hold on to that. It's going to be better. We also have our school fund balance reports. This is their general and operating accounts as well as their trust accounts. And we have many field trips that were being refunded at this time because unfortunately the students were unable to go on these field trips. So the numbers look a little high for some of the schools because we are in the process of returning those funds. Also, they weren't going to be able to spend some of those monies, so they're going to earmark that and send us a plan for how they can spend that at the beginning of the new year or whenever we can get students back. Not necessarily for field trips or anything, but just if they were for clubs or if they had a special project that they were going to work on. The other report that is a once-a-year report is our funding flexibility for the year of 2019 and 2020. Each year, the State Department of Education requires us to prepare this form that indicates monies that we receive in special revenue funds. So these special revenue funds are shown on the left-hand side. So typically what happens is students at risk of failure, we pay for interventionist teachers out of the general fund. So we are able to take the money that comes through on that special revenue fund 338, and we're able to move that money over into general fund. So what we do here is show how much our current allocation is, what our carryover is, and how much we can transfer over to general fund. Doesn't mean we will if we don't need to, but those are the funds that we transfer over. We will transfer over 100% of the health fitness, the nurses, because we budget for the entire amount of the nurse salaries over in general fund. So this is a report that must be approved. So if y'all don't have any questions about it, we would need to get approval for that, and it's going to be posted on our website.
Is there any questions?
I'll make a motion to accept the financial report as information. That's the first one we got to do.
I need a second, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous.
Then I will also make a motion to accept the funding flexibility report for fiscal year 2019-2020 as presented.
Okay. Need a second, Mr. Guthrie. Again, any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, it is unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, at this time, we will move on to our facilities and construction report with Mr. Tony Souls and Mr. Willie Murphy. Mr. Souls, take your time coming up. We've heard about your accident. Are you feeling okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Well, you look good, but that doesn't mean you feel good.
Maybe he'll teach all
I'm doing great. Thank you, Ms. Robinson, members of the board, Mr.
Good to
Pye. First of all, I want to thank everybody for the phone calls, the text messages, the emails, and cards, and it touched my heart, all the conversations I've had over the past couple of weeks. I know I'm part of the DD2 family now. I truly do. I believe that.
Well, next time you can ask us, you do not have to fall off a ladder for us to tell you that. So that's the lesson learned here today.
Ironically, I had just completed the ladder safety training online a couple weeks ago. I'm the king of it. I wear my crown proudly. I want to go over the facilities update I sent out to you last week. I went out to the Oak Brook site today. They've got a lot of ground stripped out there. They're bringing it to grade already. We should be having a scheduling meeting here in the next week or so to find out exactly when we're going to finish up. We know we're going to finish up by August 15th. I just want to see the milestones and how they hit those and make sure that we keep it on track. Inside the depot office there, we've got everything finished out. We're doing some painting in there now. We're going to put new flooring in there for our transportation folks and make that as nice as we possibly can. The Gregg Middle School and Knightsville Elementary School, we finally got the documentation from that from OSF, and we're complete on those 2 fire alarm systems. At Somerville High School, they're doing pretty good over there. They're putting in conduit as fast as they can and pulling in cable, and they should be setting devices for the new fire alarm system for that portion of the school that's inoperative. Yeah, that should be done hopefully by the end of the summer. In my notes for you, I had on there that they were 80% complete with Beach Hill, but I wrote this on Thursday, Friday. They went in, finished up Beach Hill. They did a survey on all 3 schools we want to do next year, so we're done for the year with our hardware replacements. We replaced hardware in all 7 schools. We started about the middle of April, and it took them a good 2 months to do it. I'm kind of, if there's a silver lining in it, this was a silver lining in everything. We got this completed on time and got it knocked out. The ones we want to get done next year is adult education, River Oaks Middle School, and the older part of Ashley Ridge High School, to bring all that up to the Access 3 system. I should have a budgetary number on that within the next couple of weeks. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Willie Murphy to talk to us about the district office renovation.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to be with you tonight. I think it was late February when I met with you last, but I'm happy to say that throughout the pandemic, the project at Rollins has continued to move forward each and every day. I'm not aware of a single COVID-related illness that has impacted the job site whatsoever. We have noticed a little bit of reduction in some of the staffing, but it's to my knowledge and through questions of the contractor, they are not reporting any COVID-related illnesses at all, or any impacts to the job site in that regard. We'll give you a brief report of what's happening in each portion of the building. Wing 1, which is the wing, the east wing closest to the stadium. HVAC rough-in, that's all electrical, mechanical, and plumbing is complete, and they started hanging gypsum board early last week to finish the walls. All the studs have been in place for some time, and one of the most significant changes in the building is they've knocked out all of those 1970s retrofit walls that they put into the large window openings. All of those have been torn out now, and we actually have new metal frame window units going into those openings. And the big impact to the space is the amount of natural light that comes into those spaces now. It is a tremendous improvement over what was there before with the smaller windows. So that's one of the most noticeable things, changes over the last 30 days or so. Wing 2, which is the portion of the building in the middle, behind the old auditorium, what becomes the new boardroom. The studs are in place for all the office spaces and so forth back there. And all of the electrical, mechanical, and plumbing rough-ins are currently underway, but just about complete in that space. So they should be hanging some gypsum board in there as well in the very near future. Wing 3, the west wing, the one closest to the highway, is, again, the window openings have been opened up. There's plastic in those right now, so they're preparing those windows for new window frames. Stud walls are about 80% complete in that area, and the HVAC rough-in is probably 60-75% complete. HVAC is a little bit behind some of the other disciplines. The main wing is obviously the oldest portion of the building. That has been the slowest to kind of figure out after we've taken all the finishes off, and we found some rotted wood floors and some things of that nature, and some issues in the bathroom with load-bearing walls and so forth that had to modify the plan a little bit to make it work. So we're working on installing new foundations in that area to put in some new shear walls where we're opening up that entrance to have a really nice pre-function space for the auditorium. So all of that is underway, but it's just slower than we all expected. So that portion of the building is likely to delay the overall schedule somewhat. Schedule-wise, we will not be meeting the March deadline, which was, late October deadline. So it appears that we'll be, first quarter of next year, probably toward the end of that time frame before the building will be 100% complete and ready to occupy due to some of the issues we found and some changes we've had to make in the process. But in terms of budget, we are working very diligently with the district to stay within their total budget for the project as a whole. So I think all said and done, the building will be better than it originally started or was originally planned due to some of the things we found and some of the changes we've been able to make during the process due to some of those discoveries. You have any questions? Yes? Well, nothing's been scheduled at this point. If you want to work that through the district, I'd be happy to take you on a tour. At this point in time, you have to be aware there's some big holes in the floor and some things of that nature. So
Upstairs is pretty that's pretty good. It's downstairs, the main lobby is pretty rough.
right. And that's the main thoroughfare to get from one wing to the other. So
unless we go to the elevator side.
right. So it might be best if we delay it a while until we get some more walls in place, and then you can really see what the spaces are like, especially after the windows go in. But yeah, be happy to lead a tour if you guys want to schedule one. Okay?
Are they back to work with the stuff under the building, with the pipes and the water and the...
I think so. We talked about that at length in our last project meeting. We have another one on Wednesday, and we're going to really discuss the schedule and kind of how that process is going to move forward and making sure that all of that's getting there.
Perfect. And I was hoping that would be the month of June, but I'm not sure they even started back yet.
Started back on that area? No, they are still waiting for some things to occur to get the right people in there with the right gear to get the work done.
Okay, good.
Any more questions? Thank you
Okay.
very much for that
Thank you.
report. Appreciate it.
Good evening.
We'll move on to the personnel report. Our personnel directors have put in our packets the resignations for 2019-20, as well as the recommendations for 220-221. If everyone's okay doing that in open session, I'll need a recommendation for approval.
I make the motion to approve the personnel resignations and recommendations for 2019 and 2020.
Okay.
2020.
2021.
And 2021.
Thank you. Boy, the year.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second that. And I was going to, Mr. Pye, on the personnel recommendations, do you know where we at as far as next year? How many positions are you missing? Do you know?
This is the time of the year that we have a lot of resignations. I don't know why. I had it when I was in personnel. It's like the words on the street that if you're going to leave, don't leave until the end of June. Your benefits will be messed up and all, and so how much of that's true depends on the individual. So now's when we're beginning to receive notice that indeed we'll be accepting jobs somewhere else. So we've had, it's normal for what we always have, so it's just disappointing because every time we get down to single digits, it picks right back up. So Ms. Venari and Ms. Goodwin, you all here? I'm here. What do you think our openings are? 20?
And maybe while we wait for her, I know there was some discussion about, I'm not sure if it's from Ms. Spearman or the legislature, maybe opening some options for retirement levels. I mean, I'm
To
sure they are
relax on
trying to do.
certification, they're trying to relax on certification and other types of options, the retirees, to raise that cap, that 10%, that caused a lot of people just to hang it up. And so we could be getting some of those folks back. I don't know if they're contacting you asking about that, or if that word's really out there yet.
I don't know that the word is out yet, because it's not official yet, but they have talked, that is talk. But to answer your first question, it's hard to believe this, we don't have any more openings right now than we did this time last year. It changes every day. I mean, we hire somebody, someone resigns over the weekend, it's hard to believe today's only Monday, but someone resigns over the weekend, and then we try to fill that position. We don't release people unless we can find a viable candidate if they're leaving anywhere within, the Tri-County or in close proximity. But we work every day to fill those positions. We're still clearing candidates. There's still candidates out there, which is a positive thing. There's a lot of things that we don't know what the future holds, but we just keep trying to fill those positions. And just like Mr. Pye said, we'll get excited, we'll be down to single digits, and then I'll walk out of a meeting with him and I'll go back and there's 3 more openings. But again, that's typical this time of year. There always tends to be some resignations when we come back from the July 4th holiday, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that won't be as many this year as there have in the past. But again, we're not in bad shape right now.
You have a rough idea what number? Is it 15?
I think we're down to 13. Good. But while I'm sitting here, some things could change. I called 2 people on the way here. We got some candidates out there who are deciding, making some decisions. So we do it all the time.
And generally, our neighbors, not to be ugly or anything, but it's just we track all that to see how bad this is going regionally or whatever. And we have been every year considerably lower. Say if we have 13, they may have 40. And then, so we look at that, they're larger districts, some of them, but at the same time, that sort of gives us a gauge. And so our numbers might be then our smaller districts, neighbors, they may have less too. I don't know, they tend to fill up quickly their positions. So this is just an interesting year, but our openings are usually one and the same. If you see an elementary or a couple of high school positions or middle school positions, we kind of can breathe easy. We know we'll probably hire them. But when you get something weird, something unusual, like German and those areas, you can't find them. They're not there. If you have an opening, you have an opening all year. So we go back to our scheduling board to try to redirect students in other areas. And we've actually lost programs through the years because we couldn't find teachers. So we just shift them there. If we can't have German, I know we can have Spanish. And so we tend to do fine there.
We're actually holding very well right now with our foreign language, so keeping fingers crossed on that.
Good news, you guys did good. I saw one of our district teachers of the year is coming back to the district, it looks like, in our packet. So
Yes.
there you go.
We're so glad to get her. She's outstanding. She never really left. She's been home with her child.
Any more questions for Ms. Fenari while she's up here?
No, we got a bunch from them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Is there any discussion? We have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, it is unanimous. Thank you so much. We will go now to our unfinished business, and we do have the workshop facility study reviews that we have started, and there are 2 scheduled, one for July 13th and one for August 10th, and they are both at 4 p.m. Does that suit the board?
So those are not dates to choose from. We need 2 dates.
Correct.
Okay.
Does that suit everyone then? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. That is also what I have, and unless somebody else has any unfinished business, we will move on to our public comments. Ms. Rayner, do we have any? Okay.
We have several public comments, and they appear to be from the same individual. Tamara Layton Ford. The first is, in lieu of all of the civil unrest, are there any plans for the school district to update their school policy to enforce zero tolerance for students using racial slurs on school property? Please elaborate, as previously there seemed to be more of a check-the-box approach used by coupling these instances with bullying. Charleston County revised their policy. When will Dorchester catch up and update ours? How will we communicate and enforce this policy update for staff, parents, and teachers? How will you communicate it to students to hopefully change the current culture at DD2 schools? In my humble opinion, staff, parents, and students need to be coached, taught which behaviors are and are not appropriate to help the district achieve their goal of being recognized as a world-class school district. Expecting each student to achieve at his or her optimum level in all areas, and providing all members of our district family with an environment that permits them to do their personal best. Additionally, a collaborative approach at all levels is needed to enforce an updated policy. Secondly, mission, Dorchester School District 2, leading the way, every student, every day through relationships, rigor, and relevance. I thought DD2's goal was to lead the way in ensuring all students truly achieve at his or her optimum level in all areas by providing an environment that permits them to do their personal best. So why have they not taken the same approach as other local counties and stated racism, hatred, and prejudice are evils that cannot and will not be tolerated on school grounds? Thirdly, is the district still requiring all students to stand and participate in the Pledge of Allegiance during 2020-2021 school year, despite all students not being treated equally on DD2 school grounds? The rest are via email. If you'll. Did we name Fort Dorchester Elementary and High School based on the history of local events in 1775? If so, does the district have any plans to update outdated school names that are prior to slavery ending and or after individuals who would not be honorable in today's environment? Any plans to include additional notable African Americans to the list? If so, please contact me, as I have a few suggestions for honorable South Carolina natives that our students can respect and aspire to be. And lastly, minority children make up more than 27% of Somerville. Does the district plan to lead the way?
Go ahead, yeah, that was...
I was almost finished. Does the district plan to lead the way and teach our Native, Hispanic, and African American children more rich, positive history, customs, and traditions about their culture to build their sense of self, pride, and confidence? Let's teach them about more than slavery. Can we talk Black Wall Street, etc.?
Thank you, Ms. Rayner, for being proxy to those public comments, and we welcome public comments, and as everyone knows, we as a board, is our policy, and as a state of South Carolina's policy as well, that we don't respond, but I'm sure it was listened to by many people in here who are in leadership positions and will be able to reach out to those who needed answers. All right, I think that's everything. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Evan Guthrie, a second.
Oh, no.
Mr. Brian Mitchum, any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all for being here tonight. I have a surprise.